What is up, guys? NYKia31 here, first week of 2021, and I return. I was on a bit of a blackout, if you will, for a couple of weeks. I took some time off and enjoyed the holidays to the fullest, and also ended up getting sick. Not COVID related, thank God, but nonetheless, there's a lot of stuff going around, man. I got this nasty stomach bug that had me vomiting for most of an entire day. I mean, it's just yeah, we live in a weird time, weird time. But anyhow, I return, and honestly, I almost didn't come back. Just the state of the game, the state of next gen Madden. I was having such a nice, relaxed time during my holiday. I almost said, screw it. I'm going to shut it down for the rest of the cycle. And truth be told, over the next several weeks and, a couple of months, I'm going to be gradually scaling back. I'm in four CFMs right now. That's going to be scaling back considerably. I'll probably play one more full season in all of them and then kind of just, chop off from there. The game for this cycle is just pretty much tapped out, I think. The current gen current gen in quote, we're in next gen now, so to speak. But the PS4 version of the game is pretty much done. I know they did an update that they released a couple of days ago, where they talked about franchise stuff that they've been gradually adding during the year, slowly. There's never any delays in getting stuff like the SpongeBob Stadium into the yard, if you notice, or MUT content out. But for the CFM guys, that has been a slow trickle throughout the year, and the gameplay updates are pretty much. I mean, what more are they going to be able to do? They said that they did some zone tuning for the single high safety. Honestly, I mean, I've only played maybe one or two games since coming back. The difference seems negligible to me. I'll do some testing when I am in the mood. And the next gen version of the game, to me, I have no interest in playing next gen Madden 21 whatsoever. It looks, I get what they're trying to do, but it's clear to me that they're just between having the PS4 and the PS5 one and the Xbox side in development, they did not have the time to flesh out what they wanted as far as that goes. So I don't really see the point of playing next gen Madden 21 right now at all. And I doubt that's going to change. But anyway, NFL playoff weekend. Here we are. We got through this regular season with relatively fewer than I thought, COVID mishaps, and here we are in the postseason. We got 3 games. No, we have 3 games today, 3 games tomorrow. We have Indianapolis and Buffalo, the Rams and the Sea Chickens, and the Bucks and the Redskins. And then tomorrow we have Ravens, Titans, Bears, Saints, and the Browns and the Steelers. Pretty interesting matchups. I'll be watching all of them with keen interest. I'm interested in the Colts, just for the fact that the Colts had a pretty decent year and no one really paid attention to them at all. They went 11-5. They got a pretty decent year out of Phillip Rivers, but they're a very nondescript team. They're coached well. They got a good year out of Phillip. They ran the ball pretty well. They ran the ball for almost 2,000 yards as a team. Probably the reason why you saw Phillip Rivers had one of his better years as far as not turning the ball over. He still threw for over 4,000 yards, and he still threw the ball, over 500 times. It's not like they went into a complete shell and played like the Titans, for example. But they got a decent year out of a guy who doesn't really have a whole heck of a lot of years left. But they don't get a lot of attention because they're kind of like a steak with no seasoning. I mean, you don't really have anyone that really pops out at you offensively. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had a good year, but he's not exactly what you would call a household name. T.Y. Hilton is the closest thing to a household name outside of Rivers that they have. He didn't really have a big dynamic year. They have decent receivers, but nothing that is really eye-popping to you. They had a decent year defensively. DeForest Buckner had a really nice year. But when you're a team like that, in the market that they're in, you're just not going to get a whole heck of a lot of national love and attention. And you know, people are not going to really appreciate the good year that you had. On the other side, you have the Buffalo Bills and the Josh Allen experience that, who had a heck of a year and an MVP candidate caliber kind of year. What can you say? I mean, the guy has been exceptionally well coached. He's obviously put the work in. He's got a organization that's been doing the opposite of what the Jets do with Sam Darnold and actually beef up the talent around him. And I really like how they play. I always thought Josh Allen would basically devolve into a train wreck. I thought he was way too raw, way too inaccurate, way too wild. But I find him really fascinating to watch. I really do. I make it a point to watch him every week because he can really do some freakish things. Either, well, more so this year for you as opposed to against you, but, you know, he's a ride. And when you look at, you know, comparisons, you know, for him, he's a lot like Cam Newton. There's a tendency to not compare white and black athletes to each other for obvious reasons. I mean, let's just be honest. But he's Cam Newton. He's a lot like Cam Newton. He's a big guy. They run him like Cam Newton. He runs like Cam Newton. He's got a rocket of an arm. He's not quite as fast as a peak Cam Newton was, but he's a really good athlete. He's a really good runner. And they play an awful lot like the Panthers did in their 15-1 year. They play decent defense. You can move the ball on them. You can move the ball against most teams in the league now. But they have better receivers. Stephon Diggs, top 10 receiver. John Brown, when you put him as a number 2 receiver, is excellent. Cole Beasley is still one of the better slot receivers in the league. And they run a system that accentuates what he can do. Their approach to developing Josh Allen has been the complete polar opposite to what the Jets have done with Sam Darnold. Not that I'm bitter or anything like that. But I really like the Bills to get to the championship game, and it would not shock me if they got out of the AFC. I do not have a good feeling about the Chiefs. I just don't like teams that shut it off and get bored by how good they are. And that's where I feel like the Chiefs are at right now. Now, they very likely could be able to flip that switch and just go right back into track and meet mode. That's very possible, but I just think that's a dangerous game to play in football. We've seen that happen to a lot of Peyton Manning Colts teams that had good regular seasons. We've seen that happen to the Greatest Show on Turf Rams, where they just get too arrogant and too full of how good that they are, and you go to reach for that switch in a one-and-done game, and it ain't quite there. I just think that's a dangerous game to play. But anyhow, we'll get to that bridge when we get to it. Rams Sea Chickens. Sea Chickens should win that game. I have a feeling this will be a classic Seattle game where they make it, where they make life harder for themselves than they need to, and Russell has to pull rabbits out of his hat. Even though I think that there's the superior team, can't you just see that happening? Where, you know, Aaron Donald is just causing havoc all day long, Russell running for his life, and the game comes down to Russell pulling a couple of magic tricks out of his ass to DK Metcalf downfield, and they win like a, 6 to 8 point game. I can absolutely see that happen. They should win the game, but I think that game could be a little bit more stressful than it needs to be for them. The nightcap tonight, Redskins and the Bucks. If Washington had a better quarterback situation, I think this would be a very, very interesting game. Alex Smith can't move anymore. That's the big thing, which is a shame. And, you know, behind him, God knows what. But I can absolutely see the Redskins defensive line getting Tom Brady into temper tantrum Brady mode for a while. But the problem is going to be the Redskins just will not be able to score enough. I think this game can be a pain in the behind for the Bucks, depending on how long Bruce Arians remains stubborn. What the Redskins should do is run The Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady era Pats offense. Spread out and run a bunch of stick option routes. Get the ball out of there hot, nullify that front four pass rush, and a little bit of under center play action passing game. Basically the offense that they've been running since 2010, when they no longer had Randy Moss. But this is Bruce Arians. Who knows? He can be very stubborn. Who knows? We'll see. But I don't think Redskins are going to be able to keep up for very long. I think that game's going to get away from them in a hurry, and that's a shame. They are the classic quarterback away from being a problem team. Worst place you can be. Anyway, on to the Sunday games. Baltimore and Tennessee. I don't have a good feeling about Baltimore this year. I think that offense is getting stale. They need to get Lamar a legitimate wide receiver or two, and they need to evolve that offense. But I don't love the Titans either. I think the Titans are basically a more talented version of the Colts. And I think the Titans are going to win this game. The key to beating the Titans is that you have to get the game to a point where they have to drop back into the football. But I don't think the Ravens' offense is going to be able to get the game to that point. And when you keep the Titans around, Derrick Henry becomes a pain in the ass. Ryan Tannehill becomes a pain in the ass running zone reads and play action. And they're a real irritating team to play against under those situations. I think the Titans are going to win the game. I really do. Next, we have, Bears, Saints. I don't think there's a lot to discuss here. The Saints should handle business here pretty easily, I think. Steelers, Browns. I don't know, man. Pittsburgh should win this game. Cleveland has all kinds of COVID issues that they're dealing with. But the Steelers are weird, man. Can't you see the Steelers as having issues in this game? And making our Steelers fans on Madden Twitter just lose their minds for 2.5 hours? I think they'll win the game, but I think this game is going to be weird because the Steelers have played like one good game in a month. And even that game, I don't know. I don't trust them, but I think they'll win this week. But God knows what's going to happen to them going forward, so we'll see. I think that game is going to be a little bit more of a headache than it should be. So there you go. We'll see how it plays out. Playoff football is going to be a fun postseason, an interesting postseason. I'm curious to see how things play out with not much of a home crowd involved. So let's go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talk to you all later. Peace.